Republican and Democratic candidates may still be able to sway the minds of some Iowa voters, even though they have just 3 days to go. According to this new Monmouth University poll from before the GOP debate, just 48% of likely Republican caucus goers claimed they were, quote, completely decided. 38% claim they have a strong preference. 7% say they have a slight preference. Just 8% claim they're undecided. A separate Monmouth University poll from this week showed 55% of likely Democratic caucus goers said they were completely decided. 30% with a strong preference. 7% claimed a slight preference. And again, 8% said they were undecided. Patrick Murray is the director of the Monmouth University Polling Institute, and we're glad to have him live with us here on set. Nice to see you.
My pleasure, Shep.
8% may not sound like a lot of undecideds, but if they go one way, it's a big number.
Right. And I think it's actually bigger than that. I think those people who have a slight preference really could move. I've talked to voters in Iowa, and it's amazing that they really say, well, you know, I'm for this candidate, but then you could ask them the next day, and suddenly they're switching their mind. There's a lot of volatility there, particularly in a race where, guess what, you know, only about 15% or so of all registered voters in Iowa are actually going to take part in this caucus.
That's if it's a good night.
Yeah.
15% would be good. I want to show you these favorability and unfavorability ratings, because this is one of the things that tends to sway voters from time to time. These are the numbers of favorable, unfavorable, and no opinion on the 4 of the candidates on the Republican side. Man, Jeb Bush just can't get away from the unfavorable numbers.
No, and his numbers keep going worse and worse. I mean, he's gone south all along. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to do well in Iowa. It's going to be a question of whether he can do well in New Hampshire, where his numbers aren't good there either. You know, everybody's numbers actually in Iowa have gone down a little bit, I think, because you're in the heat of the campaign. But I mean, you still got Rubio and Cruz at 6 and 10. You got Trump at least half have a favorable opinion of him. So these are the candidates who the voters really like out there in Iowa. Yeah, and that really is the core about where their support could go.
Do you see a trend upward for Marco Rubio? From looking at your polls, it kind of seems like it.
Yeah, but it's a slight trend. In Iowa, it's a slight trend. It's like, but he's positioning himself, distancing himself from the other establishment candidates, from Bush and Christie and Kasich, and that's, I think, for him the key. Yeah. Nobody expects him to win Iowa, but if he can come in a clear 3rd place with nobody close behind him, then part of the story becomes Rubio is the establishment candidate.
Especially in that establishment lane.
Right.
Democratic side, favorability, unfavorability. There's so much made about how, well, you know, nobody likes Hillary, nobody likes Hillary. Well, Democrats do. 78% favorability. Bernie Sanders, 85%. To what do you attribute that?
Yeah. I think there's just a sense that in the Democratic Party that Bernie Sanders is voicing some issue positions that they felt have just simply been ignored because Clinton was considered the foregone conclusion as a candidate. And they just like the idea that he's out there, you know, articulating those issues for the left, for the progressive side of that party.
The positions of the far left seem to be making a lot of hay on the Democratic side, and the positions of the far right seem to be getting a lot of notice within the Republican Party at a point where we're supposed to be more in the middle.
Right, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing in this race, is that the Sanders supporters are unhappy with the Democratic Party in terms of what issues that they're going after, are talking about. On the Republican side, it's slightly different. It's an anger, but it's an anger against the Republican establishment that's coming from both moderates and conservatives within the party, who basically say they don't see strong leadership in the party. And this is where all this Trump vote is coming from. These people have kind of bound together and said, we're going to look aside from ideology. We're not going to worry about our ideology in this election cycle. We're going to worry about sending a message to our own party. And I think that's what's scaring the party leaders right now.
I'm mad, he's channeling my mad, we're all mad.
Exactly.
You know, in Iowa, so much of it is about contact and actually pushing individual voters. They've come to expect it over the years, and they get it. Look at this next poll. Did anyone contact you personally to ask you to caucus for a particular candidate? This is a new one, and this is on the Republican side. 45% of people said they've been contacted. Yeah. Oh.
I mean, that's incredible, because you won't see those numbers in South Carolina, which is coming up soon, anywhere near that. I mean, this is what it's all about, is getting, and we're talking about, and I have estimated a high turnout for the Republican side of 170,000.
That happens. Your polls show it's Donald
Trump. It's a Trump race, and the reason why is because if it's 170,000, it's these people who aren't contacted, who are supporting Donald Trump, are going to come out all by themselves. But in a low turnout event like Iowa is that it's all about your church leader, your community leader, getting the group out to come out to vote, and that's what this is really the key, I think, of this whole thing. in Iowa has always been that the establishment candidate, the social conservative candidate, where Ted Cruz is right now, has always done better in Iowa than the polls predict because of those people coming out, because of those contacts, because they're coming out as a group. So we'll see what happens. But if our polling is correct, and we're going to get these huge number, 50,000 extra voters who who are Republicans and go out in general elections and vote against Democrats, but don't come out and vote in primaries because they're not too happy with the Republican Party. If they come out because of Donald Trump and they're coming out all by themselves, then I think you're going to see an entirely different ballgame here, and I think we're going to be talking about the inevitability of a Trump nomination.
That is if they come out. Because
if they come out, yes.
It's one thing to tell a pollster, I'm going, I love Donald Trump. It's another thing to get out there and do it.
Right, absolutely. And this is what we're concerned about.
Sure.
Right? We know that Ted Cruz is going to get out at least 40,000 voters. The question is, does Donald Trump get out 30,000 voters or 50,000 voters? And that's going to be the big question.
Well, the weather sometimes in Iowa actually plays a big role. A lot of snow will slow them down.
Yeah.
The forecast for Sunday is now a little bit of rain. The forecast for Monday, clear.
Yeah.
Clear and 40 degrees.
In fact, I actually looked back at some historical weather patterns, and it hasn't snowed in Des Moines on caucus day except for maybe a couple light drizzles a couple times. And it's going to be nice weather. It's going to be in the upper 20s to mid-lower 30s.
Yep.
It's going to be clear across the entire state. You know, if you have nothing better to do, you might come out and vote. And these are going to be the Trump voters.
Might get a half a foot or so on Tuesday, but Iowa can take that.
Yep.
It's nice to see you. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.